Right. Okay, so today's session is an overview of M365, and hopefully we'll also have a look at the accessibility tools as well in the last part of the session. You can find the training summary on Edit, and I will just go ahead and pop the link in the chat there for you as well. But I do sometimes deviate a bit from the training summary. We'll see how we go. So most of the web or the apps that we're looking at today are web-based, or they have a desktop counterpart as well. I'm going to be using the web-based ones because I know sometimes people don't have things installed. So I'm going to be using the web-based, but I'll let you know if there's a desktop app as well. So whenever we're talking about M365 apps, Microsoft apps, the best place to log in and make sure you're logged in at the right spot, especially if you're in corporate, is to go through the EdPass portal. So if you haven't or you don't normally visit this, I'll just pop that in the chat as well, but it's a good idea to bookmark that page because this page lets you access all the apps that you can access with your department at school's email address. Now, when you go to this EdPass portal, sometimes you might click on an app and you won't be able to access it because some of these apps do have subscriptions associated with them, and you might not have a paid subscription. But if you scroll down to the productivity and collaboration section, all the apps in here you can access to some degree. And what we're going to be focusing on today is this M365 portal. Now you'll notice there's lots of Microsoft apps in here. However, there are a whole heap of other apps that you can access with your Microsoft license. So we're going to find them by selecting this tile here. And then that should log us on with our @schools email and take us to the Copilot page. Now, Sarah, I'm just going to double check with you that you're with your @schools email because the SA.gov email is slightly different and you'll have different apps. So you can always check what you're logged in with, or down here it is. And here I can see I've got my schools account. Sometimes I think it's because my screen's enlarged a bit, but sometimes it's up the top. And I've actually also logged into Edge with my @schools email as well. If you haven't set up a profile in Edge or Chrome, again, it's really handy if you do set that up because then a lot of the times you'll automatically be logged into the right account when you go to access those apps that you're using every day. And you can see I've got a few profiles because I've got a few different training accounts on this computer. Okay, so from this website here, again, I'll just pop that in the chat in case you can't get to it through the EdPass portal. You can use Copilot as a staff member. This is turned off for students at the moment. Just on this, why would I use Copilot and not EdChat? I would say most of the time use EdChat if you can, but you might want to use Copilot if you're doing things with Microsoft stuff. So you can see here under here, it's already picked out some documents that I've got saved in this account that it thinks it might like, or I might like it to help me with. So that is one of the reasons why you might use Copilot and not EdChat. The results at the moment are still hit and miss, I think, with Copilot, and if you're asking it to produce document types. So my go-to is EdChat, but you do have access as a staff member. Okay, so if you've got this left-hand menu here, again, mine is a bit squashed because of my screen size, but where you want to...
You're done.
where you want to go in order to access all your apps. Apologies, I'm just muting Pep. So where you want to go to access all your apps is in this left side menu and then apps. Now, again, it's going to show you the ones that it thinks you want. We want to select this all apps. And then that is going to show me all the apps when I select again all apps here. And now I really truly do have all the apps that I have available in my license. So if I scroll down, you can see there's a whole heap in here that you might not have heard of that you can access. Now down the bottom, please don't be misled. This again is some suggestions. You might not have access to the ones down the bottom, but you do definitely have access to the ones up the top. Some of them do require a license if you're going to use the desktop version, but all of them, apart from a couple, which I'll talk to when we get to them, you can access with your current license. Any questions, or everyone's okay at the moment? Just give me a thumbs up. Perfect. And Pep, hopefully you've seen in the chat I've been popping some links in, so hopefully you're able to find where we are. Okay, so I'm just going to run through these apps and I'm going to show you a few examples of how they might be used in an education setting or some of them in a corporate setting as well. The first one here you'll see is bookings. You might have seen on some people's emails a little hyperlink pop up at the bottom saying book a time with me. That is through the Bookings app. You can just click into it. I always like to go open in a new tab, and that way I don't lose that tab there. So you can set up your personal booking page, and that's that link that you'll see in some people's email signature. But in a school setting as well, if you don't have any other apps or subscriptions or ways you're doing this at the moment, you can set up parent-teacher interviews or freeway interviews. Or if you're wanting to kind of schedule your team to be available for people to book things in, you can do it through Bookings as well. I'm just going to jump into one that I've already set up. So this is kind of the interface that someone would use to set it up. You can see here, you can add the people that you want on this particular booking page. And you can also, it doesn't show it here, but in calendar and availability, you can say when they're available. In this instance, it's parent-teacher interviews. So this is what the parent would get, and then they can pick the person they want the interview, and then they see the times that are available. You can see different people have got different availability. So really handy if you're wanting to set up something like parent-teacher interviews or bookings with your team. Okay, I'm going to jump back into the All Apps page. We're not going to talk around Calendar because Calendar is kind of integrated into a whole lot of apps. Outlook and Teams, for example. Class Notebook as well, I'm going to leave for the moment because this link here is simply managing class notebooks. It's not actually creating one. Clipchamp, however, I am going to jump into, and hopefully I've got it open up. I think this is it. Yep. So Clipchamp is a video editor. No, that's not Clipchamp. Here we go. Clipchamp is a video editing app. If you are old enough to remember Windows Movie Maker, Clipchamp is the modern revised version of Windows Movie Maker. So it's a basic video editing software, there is a desktop app as well available. So for instance, if I go into this one, if I open it in the editor, when it loads, you'll be able to see it's quite similar to what you might remember in terms of being able to add, if I can close this down, here we go. So here I've got my footage, I can add in text, I can change and edit my audio, and I've got my basic adding images, adding slides and things like that on the side. This is really cool to use if you're wanting to do a screen record, for example. So if you're wanting to create materials for people, your students or other members of staff, there is a text-to-speech. There aren't too many voices available at the moment, but again, if you're wanting to use this with students, for example, and they're a bit shy about recording their voice, that is an option there as well. And you can just record audio as well. So that's Clipchamp. And I'm going back in. I am running a session on Clipchamp and a bit later this term as well. Now, connections we don't use as a department. Excel, you are all probably familiar with Excel, the desktop app. I would stick to Excel, the desktop app, rather than the web version. The only thing that is nice with the web version is that it does now have this inbuilt Copilot. So I can ask it a question. So I could put in here, please add oh, I've forgotten what it's called. Color formatting. It's not called color formatting. I've forgotten for a moment. But it should remind me to the comments column. Now, at this stage, it is not going to edit my actual spreadsheet. It's going to analyze this spreadsheet, and then it's going to create a new file for me to download and have a look at. So it won't actually edit your work. Here it is, conditional formatting. How could I have forgotten that? So it's added these rules, hopefully. And then it's got this file that I can download. And if I open that now, it's going to open on the other screen. So bear with me for a moment. But you can see then it's put in that conditional formatting for me, and it will have done that with the proper rules. So if I go in and manage my rules, you can see it's got the rules in there. So it hasn't just made them pretty, it's actually created the rules for me. So again, I would stick to the desktop app, but if you're stuck for a formula and you want it to analyze your spreadsheet, jump into the web version and try that out. On a side note as well, EdChat is fantastic for fixing up and creating Excel formulas for you as well. So if you're ever stuck, EdChat's really good to use. Okay, forms. Now, Forms is a form or a quiz program. This one is only web-based. This one can be shared externally. So you can share a form with parents, community, people outside of our organisation, people without an @schools email address. The caveat on that is you cannot, if you're sharing it externally, you cannot have a question type, which is a file upload. So if you are needing people to submit forms or documents or photos, then forms won't work for you externally. Internally, perfectly fine, but externally, it doesn't have that capability. I'm just going to hop into a few forms to show you. One really nice thing about Microsoft Forms is you do get this nice response overview. So you can see it will produce some nice graphs for you. And this is live. So if someone wants to submit this particular form right now, we'd see this change in real time. It will do some nice word clouds, etc. You can see here as well, it does create an Excel spreadsheet with the answers in there. I'm not going to open this one because it's got people's names and emails in there, but you can download that, or you can manipulate it and work with it and use other programs and really drill down into that information. Can be used in tons of different ways. So for example, you might be teaching maths with your students, or any subject where you need people to give you or share their voice. So a student can create a form and they can share that with their classmates or the community and get that data, and then use that data to create their own graphs and things in Excel or outside of forms. You can use it in the corporate world for things like flexible working agreements from home and get people to submit those files if it's internally. This particular example is connected to something called a Power Automate flow, and we have a look at some flows a little bit later, which is connected to an approval, which means that once this form is submitted, someone gets an email and then they can approve that. So lots of complex things you can do with forms. Last example is a formative reading comprehension, for example. So you can see I can upload images, I can upload more text, and then this is a quiz. So this is the back end, and you can see I've got responses that are correct marked. So this is going to self-mark. Now you'll notice here, this is a question where I want my students to put in something. So that one is going to be teacher marked, but where it's a multiple choice or where it's something like a maths quiz and there is a definite answer that can't be right or wrong, that has to be right, sorry, you can get it to self-mark. Okay, any questions around forms? I can see there's a question in the chat. Does Copilot help fix formulas? I haven't tested it myself. I presume it will look at it and make some suggestions. But again, at the moment, for my Excel formulas, I'm trusting EdChat and giving it instructions and making sure I understand the formula myself. The other thing is, as you saw, you had to download another file. So you're going to have to go in and find where the formula is and change that anyway. I presume in the future it will go in and correct them. But at the moment, because it's downloading that extra file, you might as well identify what's wrong and then use something like EdChat to fix it instead. But give it a go and let us know. Okay, so that's basically forms. And insights and learning, again, we don't have access to as such with our licensing. Learning is connected with LinkedIn Learning. Now you can, if you've got an essay library card, get access to LinkedIn Learning, but you don't through our department. So you can, get that and then access all those LinkedIn courses for free, but not through our At Schools license. I am just jumping in there quickly because there are some courses that aren't in LinkedIn that are quite handy. So you'll see these are LinkedIn, but where you see that Microsoft logo, those ones aren't LinkedIn, they're Microsoft courses. So there are some modules and learning paths on here. They're on Microsoft Learn. So you could find them through here, or you could just jump into the Microsoft Learn website and access them through there. Okay, and I think I'm safe to close that tab. Now, Learning Activities is a fairly recent app. It's not that well developed yet, but they are spending quite a bit of time developing it to make it a bit more useful. So I'm just going to jump into that one. This one, teachers can create stuff, but students can't create their own learning activities at the moment. They need a join code. So what this is, if I do new flashcards, is if I get some text, I thought I had something open, but I don't. Microsoft Forms overview. Here we go. So what this one is at the moment is if we paste in some text, and I've just put in some text off edit that I wrote, so I know I'm not breaking copyright. Can choose what we want. Maybe we want term and definition. Maybe we want all three. And then we can generate this. And at the moment, it doesn't look that flashy. I presume they are going to make it a little bit more visually appealing. So what it's done is it's analysed that text and it's put in or created some questions. If I like the look of that, now normally I would be reading and editing it, but because this is a webinar and we don't have that much time, I'm just going to pretend that I've done that bit. I'm going to save it. And then if I play, for example, you'll see it's got a card. There are my options. What is the main feature of Microsoft Forms? Well, it's definitely not D. Let's go with B. I can't click it. It would just show me the answer, and then I have to self nominate whether I got it correct or not. So let's just go through this. So again, good for revision, good for putting in text as long as you're not breaking copyright rules. If you share this, so I'll just go back to this one because this one I've shared. So this one I shared with my students, and 3 out of 4 completed it. Everyone got it all right in that self-monitoring kind of space. I can't see who did it. I can see one person started and didn't finish. I can't see that detail, but it's a bit like something like Kahoot, for example, where you can just get an idea of how your students are going. If you are sharing it, there's that join code that students can use, or you can copy the link and paste the link for them as well. So relatively new, that one. Okay, lists is something that I use all the time. So lists are similar to Excel spreadsheets, but they're SharePoint lists. Again, I'm just going to hop into my one that I've got open. So here I've got a whole bunch of lists that I have access to for some reason. If I go into this one, you can see here, this is actually connected to that form that I showed earlier. And like an Excel spreadsheet, I've got my columns. I can have calculations. Now, they're not as complicated as you can do in Excel, but I can do some simple calculations. I can do these nice choice color coding bubbles, and this particular one, this status column, depends on that approval from that form. Now, lists are connected to the back end of Teams. You can create your own, but you can see these ones have all got the name of a team behind it. I prefer them if I'm working with people in a team because unlike Excel, it's harder to break the formulas. So it's nicer to share a SharePoint list than it is to share a spreadsheet sometimes. My own account, this one's only got this one favorited, but my own account, I've got about 4 or 5 SharePoint lists that I go in all the time. So things like checking who's responsible for what in terms of looking after different schools, for example. I've got another list where I work out what loan kits are, because I've got tech loan kits, what one is assigned to what school and what the reservations are. Another one tracking what training needs to be done and all sorts of things. They're really, really handy. And this list app is how you can get to them really quickly. On this, in Edge, and you'll notice something similar in Chrome as well, if you're in a Microsoft app or lots of websites as well, if you see this tiny logo up the top here, that means that there is a web app available. A web app is similar to a desktop app. What it basically is it takes this website and installs it as an app. So if you are using SharePoint lists, then I'd be clicking on this icon and installing it as a web-based app so you can access it from your toolbar. Can lists be used to create Gantt charts? There is another app that we have a look at in a moment called Planner, and that is more suitable for your project management type of things. So that is a combination of Microsoft Project and Planner. Okay, I think that's all we've got in the question box at the moment. Okay, Loop is another one that's quite good for collaboration. So you'll see this symbol all over the place. If I go to Teams, for example, in my chat, you'll see here's that symbol there as well. So Loop components, they're not available in all Microsoft apps, but you will see them pop up in quite a few places. Oh, let's try. Hopefully I don't have to do 2-factor authentication. Okay, sure. So these ones here that are coming up in my Loop app are ones that are from Teams chats. But this one here is something that I've shared. And you can see this one here, I've got different people assigned to different things, and it's kind of a collaborative list or planning tool. Yeah, you can find them all over the place. Probably best if you use them in the actual app. But if you've forgotten where they were, you can go into the Loop app and find them. Okay. Now, OneDrive, we're not going to go into too much detail, but we will go in and have a look because there are a couple of features that are quite nice that you might not know about. So this is my OneDrive. In my home, when I jump into OneDrive, in this list across the top here, you'll often find files that you probably haven't edited and you maybe never touched. the reason why they appear there is they belong to a team that you're a member of, and so someone in that team has accessed them. And because you can access that file, even if you don't need to, they appear up here. In the home as well, sometimes it's quite useful. This recent shows all the recent files that you've been working on, but you can also sort by file type. So that's quite useful if you've forgotten what the file is called, but you can remember what type of file it was. In the left side menu here as well, there's a couple of other things that are quite useful. So media will go through your OneDrive and find all the videos or image files that you have. So again, that's really useful. I'm just going to take myself back one step because I forgot to explain what OneDrive is. So OneDrive, do people use OneDrive at the moment? If you just give me a thumbs up. Yep. Okay, so I might not need to explain, so I just rapidly go through it. So OneDrive, you've got 1 terabyte of space at the moment, and it's your online cloud storage. It's where you want to put the files that you are personally using for your work, not files that you're likely to share with people. If it's a file that's business critical, I would put it in Microsoft Teams, but these ones are for your personal use. So we look down the side here, and I am just going to make my screen slightly smaller so we can see that left side menu a bit better. So down the bottom you can see I've got 1 terabyte of storage and I've only used 3.5 gigabytes. In the quick access as well, you'll see the teams that you're a member with. This won't give you access to the whole team, but it will give you access to the files. So again, really handy. If you're wanting to find a file quickly, you can come in through OneDrive to find it. We looked at media. The other really handy one is meetings. Now, corporate people, this isn't that handy because our meetings tend to be in SA Gov, but definitely school people, if you've attended webinars, if you've had meetings with people through Microsoft Teams, if you come here, you'll see the team and you'll see any files which were associated with that meeting. Sorry, the Teams meeting. So really handy if you remember, yeah, we had something on OneDrive and then you can just click in and open that file. Okay, the last one in here is the shared. Again, this is really handy if you can't remember whether you've shared something, but or someone shared something with you and you can't remember what it was. So you can sort by shared by, and then you'll find all the files shared by that same person, and then you can hopefully find the right one as well. The other thing in here is the search. That's really handy to use if you're stuck as well. Okay. Right, OneNote. So OneNote is a digital notebook. It is incredibly handy. It looks quite different to your other Microsoft apps. I'm just going to jump in to one that I've got open already. So this is a desktop or a web app. The web app and the desktop app look quite different. I'll just open the desktop app as well. They look quite different. You can see this menu is completely different, and this view I've got at the moment, I've got these tabs along the top. So just be wary that they look quite different. OneNote I like to compare to those old-fashioned notebooks, you know, the spirally ones with the spiral down the side and the yellow front and all your tabs. Perfect, Kylie. The ones with all the coloured tabs, though, that were like for 5 subjects or something like that, that I loved when I was a high school student or a uni student. Well, OneNote is similar to that in that you do have these tabs. This one here is an example for staff meetings. Why am I using OneNote instead of Word, for example? Because if I put everything in OneNote, I can just click and it will go to the right page, and everything is stored in this one place rather than me having to open up lots of different documents. Again, I can do a search in here to find things. You have a personal OneNote that gets created with your @Schools account. I have OneNote on my phone and my iPad, so I can take pictures with my iPad and load them directly into my OneNote on here. It is pretty good depending on your writing at actually looking at your writing and finding keywords in your writing as well if you are taking pictures of written notes. The other nice thing about OneNote is you have a lot of, is this the right page? I don't think it is the right page. No, it isn't. The other thing I was going to show you, but I'm not, because I don't think this is the right notebook, but you can insert video links, you can insert audio files. There's a whole lot of multimedia things that you can add into a OneNote. So if you're using this with students, and this is a special type of OneNote, this is a class OneNote with these special these special sections, a collaboration space which has got something in it where the whole class can use this section. The content library where as a teacher I'd put my stuff for students to access. The teacher owning section where I would do my planning. And then each student in your class, this is a very lucky teacher with only 2 students, but each student in your class would pop up here and you as a teacher can access their folder and they can access and add stuff to their folder as well. So again, a really good way to collaborate with your students and share content with them. Okay. Outlook. Again, Outlook, we're not going to do too much in. There are a couple of things, if you haven't looked at them before, that are really handy. Ignore this newsletters because that's going to be turned off, but this to do here is really helpful. So if you're one of those people that flags emails, this to do, if you come in here and go to flagged emails, will show you all your flagged emails. This works in conjunction with Planner, which is the next app that we're going to look at. So if you create tasks in Planner, they're going to show up here as well. So I think that is probably all I'm going to say about Outlook. Okay, so that does bring us to Planner. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier with the question around Gantt charts. Planner is the free version of Microsoft Project that is available with your license. If you're wanting to create Gantt charts and stuff like that, I would highly recommend that you do buy a subscription for Microsoft Project. Microsoft Project now combines with Planner to create something called Planner Pro. I'll send the link to getting that subscription in a follow-up email tomorrow. It's not too expensive and it's prorated, so it expires on June. It's a different link for schools and corporate, but I'll send both those links out. But that's probably what you want if you're doing Gantt charts. However, Planner might be enough for you. Have a look and see how you go. So this is Planner. There's different ways you can look at things or tasks organised in Planner. So this is a Kanban style board here. These are called buckets. And you can see you can do like a checklist in here, and you can also assign tasks to people. You can assign due dates and things like that. And if I go into this card, you can see I've tagged it. That's the people I put who are responsible for it. And then I can put in notes, add attachments, and people can write messages in there as well and comments as they're going through. You can also see it on a grid, so that makes it easier visually sometimes to see the individual tasks but not the checklist. If you've assigned due dates to things, then you can see it on a schedule as well. And then it gives you a bit of an overview of what's been complete, what's in progress, and things like that. Plans can be in teams. You can see down here I've got my teams again, but you can also use it for your own planning. So you might do week 0 planning and all the stuff that you need to set up each year. And you can, it's really easy. You just go add a task, type it in. If it's just for you, you don't even worry about assigning it. But if you do assign it, it will show up in your Outlook in one of those tasks that are due. Okay. The other thing in here is my day. So if you do put in those due dates, it will show you what's due for today. Okay, I'm not sure how much time we're going to have for our accessibility tools because we've still got a couple more apps to go through, but we'll see how we go. All right, Power Automate is another one that I've mentioned a bit earlier. So this is Microsoft's automation application. It can seem a bit complex. You do have to have a basic understanding of computational thinking. So you don't have to be a programmer, but you have to understand logic and steps. There is a whole lot of templates that you can use and adapt. This example here is a flow that when a form's submitted, it gets the form response details, it gets my email address, and it sends me an email. So this flow is quite a simple one that sends me an email whenever someone submits a form, so I know that the form's been submitted. This one here is a little bit more complex. So this one here is again based off a form. It gets those responses. It's now going to change those responses, or this one's the one with 2 files, the form we saw earlier. So it's going to change those into a computer language that the computer can read. And then it's got an approval. And if the task is approved, it updates that SharePoint list and then sends an email. If it's not approved, it updates that SharePoint list and sends a different email. So one you can see here is it's been approved, and one you can see here it hasn't been approved. With those actions, you can see this kind of colourful thing here. This is called dynamic content. So anything that was entered in the form, I can use further along in that flow. I'm just going to hop into the front and the home of Power Automate. This does have Copilot as well. This Copilot is quite useful. So you can say what you want to be able to do, and it will give you some hints, and it will create those actions in the flow. again, like with all AI at the moment, I find you have to be able to understand things a bit yourself, because it doesn't always get it right, and sometimes it's harder to understand what they think than it is to start from scratch. But there is also these templates, which are a really good place as well to start, that you can use and then manipulate to fit what you want Power Automate to do. So again, a huge program, lots of possibilities. Not for everyone, but can be quite a time saver. Okay, the next one we're having a look at is Power BI. So Power BI, again, you need a special license for that. If you are building these things, these are called dashboards. If you're building dashboards that you want to share with others. Now, if you're building a dashboard that you just want to use for yourself, you don't need a special license. You can do that with the one that you have at the moment. But if, for example, I wanted to share this with my colleague, I'd need a special license for that. But this isn't a very complex one, but you can see I've got these tiles here that count. This is linked to a form and that Excel spreadsheet in the back end of the form, and this one will update whenever someone submits a feedback form. This isn't a current one, you can see 2022, but it will update here once a day, and then it will show you some visual things. Power BI is really powerful for visualizing data. All schools have one set up by System Performance, which looks at very high level data. But if you're wanting to do something visually for your own data sets, then again, Power BI is something worth looking at. Okay. OneNote we've looked at. Planner, I'm in the wrong thing. Here we go. PowerPoint, I'm not going to have a look at yet. I'm still not sure if we're going to get to these accessibility tools. We'll see how we go. I am going to briefly go into Stream and Sway though. So, Stream, is this the right one? I'm going to have to open it, I think, because I don't think I've got the right one. Yes, I have. It's just looking slightly different because my screen is enlarged. Let's open it in a new tab, and then I'm going to make my screen a little bit smaller just so I can see those windows. Okay, so you'll notice that this looks very similar to Clipchamp. That's because it is taking all our videos that we have. Now, the reason why I might want to go through Stream and not Clipchamp is I've got this nice meetings button here. So if you've been in a meeting and it's been recorded and you want to find it again and you can't find it anywhere, chances are if you come into Stream and you click on that meetings, you'll find that recording there. When you won't is when someone has changed the sharing options. So for example, after this video call today, I do go in and stop viewing and sharing for the video so that I can blur out people's faces and get rid of any data that can't be shared. But if it's a normal meeting, this is a great place to come if you can't find the meeting recording. You'll notice, and again, I think it's because of my screen, I've just swapped over to list view. That's a bit easier to manage, but you can use those thumbnails if you know what it looked like. Okay. So that's Stream. Sway is another one that you can share externally with people outside the department. So quite a few schools use Sway for their newsletter, You can also use Sway. If I go to viewed, maybe, or analytics, viewed. Yep, so here's Wakerville Primary Schools, an example of their school newsletter. You can also use it for presentations and things like that. And it is also really good for scaffolding information text if you're teaching your kids or your students how to do this. A really nice thing about Sway is that it is responsive. And responsive means that it will change shape according to the size of the screen. So it should, it's not going to do it for me, but it normally resizes. Let's make it big again. It normally resizes so that, well, you can see the text has got bigger, but if I go in here, it has changed it a bit, but it's normally a bit more noticeable. So it's great if you're sharing newsletters with parents, for example. They're likely to be reading that newsletter on a mobile phone rather than a computer, and it will make it readable on that mobile phone device. So it changes according to the screen. Let me just open Sway up again, because the other nice thing about Sway, which is different from if you're sending out an email with a PDF attached, for example, is you get analytics. Now, these analytics are quite simple. They are not complex and they are not in-depth, but they do give you a good idea of the reach and whether people are actually looking at your stuff. So, for example, this one here I can see has had 201 views. 151 of those views were a really quick glance. This particular one is embedded on a KB article in Edit, a knowledge article in Edit. So I'm thinking those 151 glances are probably people opening that article and they're not actually looking at this way. And then I can see 23 gave it a quick read and 27 read it in depth. And the average time was 2 minutes. So again, not that I'm not fussed about those analytics for myself for this particular Sway, but if you were putting a newsletter out, that's quite handy to know, so you can know whether people are not reading the whole thing and how you might want to change how you deliver your information. Okay, oops. Teams, I'm not going to go through today. It's a whole session or a whole few sessions on Teams, so we're not going to look at that at all. To do, we touched on when we looked in Outlook, but I am going to quickly jump into Visio. So Visio is all about creating charts. Again, you only have access to the web version of Visio, you and your students. There is a desktop version that is more in-depth, but I find that I can do everything I want in the web version. It is fantastic for doing charts and flow charts, and you can then go in, where is it? Here. Where is it? Save. Yep, you can go in and save as and save it as a JPEG to export it. It's got a whole lot of templates for making flowcharts and making them really easily. So I can easily drag things out and create that flowchart really quickly. If I go into Visio, into the home page, let me just go back this way. It has got a whole lot of templates as well. So you can start off with a template. It's got, a whole lot of basic ones if you're doing procedures, if you're teaching digital digital technology. This is really good for your computational thinking and things like that as well. If you're doing a flow chart for procedures in the front office and things like that as well, or even in your classroom, a really cool tool. And that brings us to the last one, which is Whiteboard. This one is not that well known. You can use it in a Teams meeting. So I could start a whiteboard in this meeting and have people contribute to it. If I was back in the classroom today, I probably wouldn't use Whiteboard because I use OneNote to do my whiteboard stuff. But it does have some really cool templates as well. So in the learning section, I can, for example, pull out a KWL. And it's there already. I can share this with my colleagues or my students and get people to add things, and it will tell me who's added them as well. So I can attribute people's contributions to the right person. Whiteboards, if I go back, you can see they save. You can share them, the live copy, not that easy to copy a copy. You have to do the old Control-A to highlight everything, Control-C to copy, and then Control-V to paste. But quite nice to share in a team space or in a Teams meeting as well. Okay, now I have completely run out of time and we haven't touched on any of our assistive technologies. So I'm not going to be able to go through them today. I will send some follow-up information about them. And I've got I think I've got some recordings that I'll pass on to people as well. Was anybody here specifically for those? Because I'm quite happy to hang around a little bit longer and go through some of those if you were specifically here for that. And if you were, I'm sorry. I can see a question there. Okay, I can't see Power Automate in my apps list. Is it accessible to everyone? It should be. However, there are some cases when it's not. So you're a corporate person. Yours is slightly different. If you're in a school and you can't see Power Automate, that means that your IT person has not turned it on for everyone. So you'll need to talk to your IT person about getting that switched on. Sarah, I will send you some information about getting it turned on because you're a corporate person, I think. In corporate, it just means the right license hasn't been attributed to your account. But Sarah, I'll follow up with some information just for you. Sarah, I'll send you some information so you can get it visible for you. Okay?
Sorry. Thank you.
All good. Would like to know, can Sway newsletters be shared by staff members? Yes. So Sway newsletters, Sways can be shared by anyone who creates them with anyone. There is a little bit of a risk in that if you choose anyone for the audience, a parent can then share that link with somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. Okay, so whenever you share a link that is a public link, there is that little bit of risk that the wrong person is going to be able to see something. So that's why if you are doing your newsletters, even if you're doing it as a PDF, make sure you have all those consents around what students' photos can go in and all those consents to share names and photos, and make sure you're wary about using the first name and initial and things like that. What about for staff to add and edit? So yes, you can share a Sway to collaborate. Sway isn't as friendly as some of the other apps in that the person that created the Sway is the owner. I can't transfer ownership, but I can collaborate. And so if I go into this way here, I can share it for collaboration. Dinosaurs. If I go to share and you want to change it to that edit link, which will mean that other people can go in and edit it. So again, that's really good if you want more than one person to collaborate on the newsletter, to share that workload around. Okay, any more questions? Well, thank you all for giving me your time. Hopefully you found that useful and you've discovered some new apps and some new ways to use apps.